Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting. As you know, in oil companies, we always begin our meetings with the safety moment. We have two exits in this room at the back of the room, and they lead to Rue Galilée. We have another emergency exit here. You can go through the courtyard of the building, and then you can also go to Rue Galilée. The assembly point is on the other side of the street, near the flower shop. We will have no drills in this building today, so if the alarm goes off, it means something needs to be attended to. So you will be kindly requested to move slowly to the emergency exits and meet in front of the flower shop. Thank you for attending this meeting. We will present you Bourbon in Motion in a global and industry concept imbued with the transformation of business models under the influence of the digital revolution, which generates a change in the behavior of all the players involved. I'm very happy that you will be able to share into the dynamic vision of Bourbon, its new configuration, which will be delivered to you by several speakers. But first of all, Gaël, the floor is yours. Thank you, Jacques. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. New configuration, new faces, and indeed we do have a clear purpose. We are faced with the worst crisis ever in our industry. And the current model does not respond to the more and more exacting needs of the market. Therefore, we have to reinvent ourselves. We need to accelerate. We cannot consider business as usual. And that is why we are presenting you our plan called Bourbon in Motion. First, we will look at the market context. Then we'll look at what we have done to adapt, what we have learned. And finally, we will look at the way forward and the strategic decisions that we intend to roll out. The market has shrunk 30 to 40%. 30 to 40% of the market has vanished. And this has been going on for 3 years. And there are reasons. We are, as I said, facing the worst crisis ever in our industry. On the left-hand side, you can see that our market is indeed cyclical, as shown by the red bars. Every 5 years, on average, there is a downturn. And you can see what happened in 2014 when the price of the barrel was divided by a factor of 3 or 4. Then in 2015, well, there the market shrank very harshly indeed. And if you compare that with the Lehman Brothers crisis in 2009, well, it goes back, and it's quite a stark difference. And if you go back to the oil crises of the 80s, even in the 80s, it wasn't quite as violent. Well, of course, this has impacted our offshore operations. Offshore operations have been shrinking for the past 3 years, and even more so in 2018. And hopefully things will pick up in 2019, as you can see on the right-hand side. But nothing is that bleak. There is some good news. And first of all, the price of the barrel. The price of the barrel for the past year has been stable above $50. $50 is indeed the level from which oil companies start investing again, because at $50 a barrel, shale oil makes sense, deep sea oil makes sense too. And as you can see here, oil companies have restored margins of maneuver and are generating positive cash flow. And you have to go back to 2008 to find such margins of maneuver. Another piece of good news, offshore oil. Offshore oil is not dead. It's still needed. And the first reason is that offshore oil still accounts for over 25% of global oil production with 26 million barrels per day. And as you can see, moving forward into the future, in order to respond to demand and depletion of oil fields, offshore oil will be needed over 23%. And oil companies have understood this. And on the right-hand side here, you can see that investment decisions are on looking north, going north. Here you have final investment decisions called FIDs, which are rising on this chart. The consequence of all this is that our market is impacted in a positive way. We believe that in 2017, we hit the trough. And little by little now, business is picking up again. So there are various estimates on the right here regarding the future. In green, the Bourbon estimate is somewhat more conservative, but everybody agrees in saying that little by little, operations are kicking back up. So actually, the real issue stems from supply. Supply, which of course exerts pressure on prices. Over 30% of the global fleet is stacked. This means 1,200 vessels which are stacked. And as long as these 1,200 vessels are not in operation, prices will remain low. There are two scenarios that must be considered. First, Optimus considers that 2/3 of the stacked fleet will never come back to operation. And at the end of 2018 or in early 2019, prices could pick up again. Others are more conservative, and Bourbon is part of the conservatives here. We believe that if prices start picking up, the fleet will resume operations. And if such is the case, prices will pick up within 2 or 3 years, in 2020 or 2021. But above and beyond mere operations, the actual issue is pricing. And as you can see on this chart here, we're on page 9, by the way. Here you have the operational cash out and financial cash out regarding. So in red, you have pricing, which have dropped over the past 4 years. And in 2014, 2015, we have managed to adapt to rates. In 2016 and 2017, however, we are left in the dust. We cannot follow suit. Why? Well, we cut our costs by 30 to 40% in a period of 2 or 2.5 years. But unfortunately, in order to strike a balance, in order to go on like this, we would have to cut our costs another 20 or 30%, 60 to 70% cost reduction from 2014. That is what the market is pointing us toward. So, as a consequence of all this, everybody is suffering. Several companies have gone bankrupt, notably in Asia. Others have significantly restructured under Chapter 11 in the U.S. Some American companies have cleaned up their balance sheet to the detriment of shareholders and financial partners. Another approach was in the North Sea. Norwegian companies have consolidated in order to get a volume impact to cut costs further. But even through consolidation, they haven't been able to achieve more than 30 or 4% cost reduction. We knew this at Bourbon because we already have critical size. And what about Bourbon in all this? Well, we are suffering like everyone else. Today, fleets vessels in operation are not profitable. Stacked vessels, which helped us adapt by cutting our operating cost at first, now have a negative impact on our income statement because a stacked vessel costs roughly $1,000 per day, and the crisis is going on, is lasting. And finally, certain vessels don't really meet market demand anymore because they're out of date, because they have conventional propulsion, no dynamic positioning technology, and they are losing value. Against this difficult backdrop, what have we done and what have we learned? Well, first, we have focused on what we do best, deliver operational excellence. Delivering operational excellence is key because it's the prerequisite to get vessels in operation. In terms of safety of operations, this 2017 was our best year, 0.53 incidents per million hours. Congratulations to all the teams at Bourbon. And we were also able to maintain technical availability above 95%, above our objectives, which is far from easy in the current context because many of our competitors have difficulties with technical objectives. Technical availability objectives. Also, we outperformed the market by 5 to 10 points in terms of utilization rate. So vessels must operate. We must operate in order to for our top line, and with our partners such as Technip, BP, Total, Exxon, Chevron, with our local partnerships, which enable us to continue to operate in countries, even if those countries are closing off in order to protect their own industries. And as you can see, over the past quarter of 2017, little by little, utilization rates are heading north again. Cash is king. We manage cash very, very closely, very tightly. We have focused on cash collection, and we have cut payment delays, and we have cut the delays by over 30%, the overdues. All maintenance investments are decided by the Executive Committee directly. And finally, we have drastically cut our costs. Overhead cut by 25%, OPEX cut by 35%, and investments cut by 60%. By reorganizing our processes, by unfortunately shutting down some entities, some companies, by stacking vessels, by stopping vessels. But unfortunately, what we have learned is that that is not enough. It is not enough because we need to get another 20 or 30%. And in order to achieve that, another 20 or 30%, there are two options. The first is wait. Wait and pray for those prices to come back up again. And the other option, as you will imagine, is to accelerate, is to move, transform, and try to find better solutions. And that is what Bourbon in Motion is all about. Now, when you analyze the market, you realize that there are two strategic areas. First, market attractiveness. Are we in a position to increase barriers to entry? Can we raise them? Can we specialize a bit more in order to generate more sales and more margin? May we achieve better access to market through stronger partnerships in countries where we operate? And finally, can we improve our business model? The other key strategic area is operational competitiveness, and there the driver is cost. Can we continue to reduce cost? Can we focus on specific regions? Can we consider franchises to a greater extent? Or can we enhance technology by connecting our vessels, by connecting our fleet? The prerequisite is that we have to be the first mover. The first mover takes all or most of what can be gained. Now, if you take a look at this twofold segmentation with regard to our plan, Bourbon in Motion, on the one hand, we at Bourbon have specialty operations, mobility, subsea, operations that we do for the French Navy, coastline protection. We have mooring and towing operations, and we also have tanker lifting and assistance operations. The key in this segment is differentiation. And in spite of the crisis, these operations are quite resilient. The issue essentially stems from marine and logistics, which is hit hard by vessel overcapacity and which is commoditizing. In this marine logistics business, cost is the main driver. Cost can be cut by connecting the fleet, which we call the smart fleet approach. And unfortunately, there are vessels which are not worth connecting, the traditional non-smart fleet. And when you look at the respective weight of these various segments, you realize that we have three main businesses. First, mobility, subsea, two specialties, therefore, where the driver is differentiation, and we have a commodity approach, marine and logistics. The main driver there is cost. And interestingly, in marine and logistics, today, if you look at the percentage of stacked vessels, or even the operating margin, well, it's pretty much the same. Why is it pretty much the same? Well, because the driver is cash, and all our decisions are cash-driven. We're sitting pretty comfortable in the short term, but not in the medium term, because we have to really focus on the modern fleet where we can sustainably cut our costs in order to achieve the remaining 20 or 30% I mentioned earlier. And now I suggest we look at these three operations in greater detail. First, let's begin with mobility. There is a barrier to entry given our historical surfer concept. We have a technical base to ensure dependability, ship to carry passengers at great speed and with great comfort, and systems whereby passengers can be taken to offshore facilities in safe conditions. The second barrier to entry is the fleet size. We have over 250 vessels on this market, and this is definitely a very high barrier. The second item here is access to market. Well, it's a local business, and we therefore need key partnerships, such as the case in Gabon, Congo, and Nigeria. I said that the driver of mobility is differentiation, but can we change our business model now? We are very proud to sell technical availability in excess of 95%. When you're a passenger, if you're in the 5% breakdown segment, of course you will be unhappy. When you take a plane, you hope that you're not in the 3% breakdown of Air France. In this case, it's the same situation. How can we go from 95% plus availability to 100%, which with customer focus, passenger focus? That is what is at stake in this segment. We have to be innovative. Maybe we can manage passenger terminals. Maybe we can supply new services by connecting our vessels. We'll explain that in greater detail. And it's exactly the same challenge when it comes to subsea operations. Here, it's about differentiation. There's a high barrier to entry with standardized vessels at the right place. We have internal capabilities in terms of vessel management, engineering, management of subsea robots, project management. Could we move from D-rate to a service, a more integrated service operation, whereby we could generate more sales and more margin with the same assets? Well, you have to be innovative. We received an award from Total in November, the first in 30 years of partnership with Total, because we achieved a major achievement. from a vessel, whereas this was done from rigs previously. And Total has reduced its cost by a factor of 2 or 3. And Bourbon has been able to increase its sales by a factor of 2 or 3 in this subsea area. And that is the kind of thing we need to do moving forward. Finally, marine and logistics. The barrier to entry has been operational excellence and modern standardized fleets. But unfortunately, that barrier is changing into a prerequisite, and this is commoditizing. The challenge in marine and logistics is to cut costs. That is why we have identified the non-smart and the smart fleet approach. Interestingly, when you connect the fleet, you realize that we know our clients' operations at least as well as they do, because in real time we know where the vessel is, how much it consumes, and what it is doing at what time. What's the equipment on board? And we know all those factors in real time. And when you collect all that information, well, why not be innovative in this commoditized segment? Why not provide integrated service and raise the barrier to entry by supplying marine logistics in an integrated contract approach? At this point, I would like to focus on marine and logistics. Indeed, the context is rough. There is a war out there. There's a crisis, no doubt. But yet there are opportunities. The first is the digital revolution. The digital revolution involves technology used for autonomous cars and trucks, and that are applicable to our industry as well. And the second opportunity is that in this crisis, our clients are very much open to change. They are expecting us to offer new solutions, and that is precisely what we're going to do. Total, for instance, has already connected its FPSOs, and it uses new technology in the North Sea, in Angola, in Qatar. BP, following the Macondo incident, has connected all its well closing systems, and operations are not from the rig but from Houston directly. And that is what we wish to do with our fleet. We wish to bank on these new technologies. That is why we've identified 2 types of fleets. The smart fleet that we are going to connect. We're looking at roughly 132 vessels. It has all redundant systems. It's maneuverable, electric diesel, to optimize fuel consumption. It's series manufactured, and it's anywhere between 5 or 6 years old on average. And in order to connect those vessels, we have developed the Smart Shipping Program. We've been working on this program for 2 years. It's not just an idea, it's not just a concept. Today, it's a program that's based on connecting vessels, country-based operations, and a central remote support system in Marseille, in the south of France. This is how it works. We currently operate our vessels with 14 or 15 people. The idea is, well, maybe we could cut the staff on board, transfer certain functions on shore, and operate with 9 or 10 crew. That is our intention. In order to connect these ships, we're going to have to invest roughly €500,000 per ship. That's 75 million euros in capex altogether. We can connect up to 30. So in 2020 or 2021, we will have the full impact of all this, given the time it takes to fit the vessels. We have 4 main projects: dynamic positioning automation, onboard process simplification, maintenance, and operational support centers. So let's look at the dynamic positioning system. This system was invented 20 or 30 years ago. The aim was to allow vessels to operate very near rigs in very safe conditions. The system consists of two consoles on the ship deck operated by 4 DP officers. 4 because it's a 24/7 operation. The challenge is that we don't spend our time next to the rig, and vessels operate 10 to 15% of their time with this dynamic positioning system, but we do have 4 people working full-time just in case. Therefore, with all that, we have considered pooling the functions, and that is what we have accomplished. We worked with Kongsberg and Bureau Veritas. We've pooled all this to make the machine automatic, functions off to the deck, and a single operator can do the whole job. But rather than delve into detail, I suggest we look at a film. We're going to listen to Master Bourbon Explorer 508, Alexander Mutt. The Explorer 508 was the first one to be equipped with the system. It's currently in Trinidad. We're operating for BP. So I suggest we listen to Commander Alexander Mutt. Hello, my name is Alexander Mutt. I'm 32 years old. I joined Bourbon in 2007. I worked my way up and I became a lieutenant working in pumps and machines. Then I worked for 6 years as a deputy captain, and in 2017 I was promoted captain. What is the impact of the organization on board with this project? Kongsberg Maritime and Bourbon developed the modifications for this project. The 2 dynamic positioning positions at the back were modified. Today, each one can control both the automation of the machinery and the dynamic positioning system. The other major change has to do with the main navigation system, radar, the GPS, the automatic pilot. They have been centralized in order to be monitored from the command position. These modifications are certified by Bureau Veritas, which is a Bourbon partner in the project. Conventionally, in order to operate a vessel over 24 hours with dynamic positioning, it took 4 officers with certification, plus 2 mechanics who worked in the machinery room. Now, with the new Kongsberg Bourbon system, with the certification of Bureau Veritas, the ship can be operated with 3 certified officers in dynamic positioning, 1 mechanic who is also involved in dynamic positioning because he is certified, and the others are in standby. This new working environment is very collaborative. The 2 operators use aviation-like checklists. In other words, one operator answers the other to check the parameters of the system. This is good for operational safety, and it also guides the operators in emergency situations. What are the advantages of such a development? Well, it's a digital revolution to enhance the efficiency and the safety of operations. Feedback shows that 80% of incidents result from human error. Therefore, it was urgent to do something at Bourbon, and this is true for our clients. The DTO Flex program improves the man-machine interface and it reduces incidents due to human error. What is customer feedback with regard to this modernization? BP is very much in favor of such developments, and they are also digitizing their documents and procedure. For instance, we work with online loading manifests and digital checklists. Is this a significant evolution in the way you work? Well, the project is a real change, and it's an honor for me to have been selected and recognized for the person in charge of this project on my vessel.
So something very important here is the approval of our customer, of BP. They focus on modification and innovation. And as far as this project is concerned, the technical evolution took us about 6-8 months of work with Kongsberg and with our teams. And it took another 6 to 8 months to actually convince BP before approaching a rig in a safe way. You have to go through a certain number of qualification processes. And this is a key problem. And being approved by BP is good because they are one of the best references on the market, and it will help us deploy the system on the rest of the market. Another project, which is part of the Smart Shipping program, is onboard simplification. We have trained 10 experts to this Lean Six Sigma technology. We've sent them on board to measure, to understand how we operated our processes on board our vessels. And we have decided to focus on 20 processes, which are quite important for us. And it was an interesting discovery indeed. We thought that we were the best. We thought that we did things in an optimum way. And if, for example, you take a cement transfer operation, which is something all our vessels do on a regular basis, we've realized that we are asking our teams to go through 21 different steps before actually loading of the cement. And they have to fill in 15 different documents in the meantime. And a lot of information is redundant, as you can imagine. So the objective here was to simplify those different processes. We could have 5 to 10 steps instead of 21, fill in one single document. And as the vessel is connected, most of these operations could be done in a fully automated way. This is the objective of this onboard simplification project. And once all this has been deployed in our fleet, we will save one junior officer position. Third key project, maintenance. Why maintenance? Because it requires 5 to 6 people on board, and the idea here is to strengthen our maintenance, go from predictive maintenance, from conditional maintenance to predictive maintenance. Once all equipments have been connected, instead of changing a spare part following the recommendation of the supplier, we change it just before it breaks. Now, once the fleet has been connected, we can transfer some of these functions onshore. You have 5 to 6 people driving the machines, and in routine maintenance, they can operate in case something happens. Now, in the future, if we can transfer the screens of the machine onshore, we should be able to send back to the shore 2 to 3 people. They will be onshore, obviously. They will go on operating whenever that is necessary and whenever the vessel arrives at quay. Now, when we are in territorial waters, our vessels come onshore 3 times a week or something. So we can change the way we operate in such a way. Now, the system is interesting here because when you add up 1, 2, 3, 10 vessels together, when you start saying, okay, we have 3 people onshore per vessel, if you have 10 vessels, you have 30 people onshore. When you talk to teams, obviously we don't need 30 people onshore for the pit stop maintenance of vessels. And this is when we can actually start saving costs. We should be able to reduce, to have 1 officer and 1 seaman per vessel. The last project is the Operational Support Center. Once the fleet has been connected, we will be able to follow what's happening with this fleet. And I would like to thank here Adeline Chalon. She is member of the board of directors of Bourbon, and thanks to her, we were able to visit the operational support center of Air France and SNCF. And we are not going to reinvent the wheel here. At the end of the year, we are going to open a similar support center. 24/7, we'll have officers who can share their knowledge of all the various functions of a vessel, maintenance, crewing, safety, meet customers' demands. And this operational center will actually be available at the end of 2018. As you now understand, this program is not only a concept, it's not only an idea, it's something very concrete, it's reality today. The objective is to improve operational excellency on board our vessels while reducing our costs. Now, the non-smart fleet, what about it? Non-smart fleet is the fleet we cannot connect because it's too old. It's 12 years old on average. Given the market, this fleet will be stacked in the coming 2 to 3 years. When it starts operating again, it will be 15 years old. We'll have to pay costs to reactivate the vessels and maybe connect whenever that is possible. And a 15-year-old vessel, well, you just don't connect it, given the limited life remaining for this ship. Now, we have decided to actually sell the fleet in question. Now, there is a market for that fleet. 40% of our competitors today that have less than 10 vessels have a fleet which is on average 23 years old. So they are interested. There are opportunities. We can sell those vessels. They are interested to replace the present fleet. The problem, as I said when I started talking, the value of those vessels has decreased. The value of the fleet here has decreased by 50 to 60%, and that's why we have decided in 2017 to bear an impairment loss of around 170 million euros to sell the fleet. Now, given this strategic analysis, you understand that these three different activities have their own criteria, their own strategic challenges, and this is why we have decided to divide Bourbon into three parts: Bourbon Marine and Logistics, Bourbon Subsea, Bourbon Mobility. Three subsidiaries that will report to Bourbon Corporation. Each activity or each subsidiary will have its fleet, its people, its teams, its income. You have the numbers here for 2017. You understand that marine and logistics, optimizing fuel consumption has nothing to do with well simulation, or it's nothing to do with the transport of passengers or services around passengers. So we actually intend to duplicate, whenever we have the critical size in countries, we will duplicate this organization. We have a pilot project in Nigeria. Petro Marine Engineering could represent subsea in the country, Petro Marine and Logistics, and Bourbon Interoil, BINL, would be mobility. Bourbon, in this particular case, thanks to a franchise contract, would provide shared services and make sure that standards are enforced and complied with. So we have decided to start deploying this new organization this year. Each of these companies will have its own governance, with its own CEO who will report to his board. The board will be made of 4 Bourbon members, 3 non-executive members. Victor Chevalier will be in charge of Bourbon Marine and Logistics. Patrick Belenfant will be in charge of Bourbon Subsea Services, and François Lesley, Bourbon Mobility. Bourbon Corporation will focus on the brand. Why the brand? Because each subsidiary will have the name Bourbon. People and key accounts, for example, will report to Bourbon Corporation. Bourbon Corporation will be in charge of standards. It will be in charge of innovation, in particular data management. Bourbon Corporation will obviously be in charge of strategy and partnership, and will be in charge of performance monitoring and global services. Whenever that is necessary, it will provide shared services in particular. So let's discover those three different companies with their CEOs. We will start with Bourbon Marine and Logistics, and I have here now Victor Chevalier, who was in charge of transformation. He joined us a year ago, and he will become responsible of Bourbon Marine and Logistics this autumn. You have the floor. Thank you. Okay, let's focus on Bourbon Marine and Logistics. Today it corresponds to supply vessel scope. The context is difficult, the market is difficult, but the company today can actually use four assets. First, its strength. It's the result of the excellent growth and trajectory since 2000. Second, the trust of our customers. We have loyal customers. Third point or third asset, the brand. Bourbon is well known. It's a leader. And fourth asset, it's a model. It has a very specific international and local model. These four assets will enable us to actually make the most of them in order to roll down the plan Gaël has mentioned. Our ambition is not to keep the present position, but it's start creating value on this particular segment. First asset, the strength. First of all, we have major assets. The fleet, 217 vessels. It's a young fleet. All the vessels were built in series. We have smart vessels that Gaël mentioned. Strong operations. 4,500 employees, more than 3,000 are seamen in 39 different countries. We have an excellent geographical international footprint. In 2017, we worked in 39 different countries for a revenue of 411 million euros. So the footprint is excellent, it's strong, and we can face all the various problems of the market. One last asset, our customer base. You have here the names of the super customers, major customers, international companies, contractors, and oil companies, obviously, international oil companies. So strong assets, strong resources, operations, strong footprint, geographical footprint, and a strong customer base. Second strength of Bourbon Marine and Logistics, trust. The customers trust us, trust our services. Our expertise today is to supply, tow, anchor, and position offshore installations of customers. We deploy this expertise in a deep offshore or continental platform in operations and production, storage, and so on. This is an expertise we are developing in all the countries in which we are present. The offshore model is well admitted. We give to our customers a vessel and its crew, and then the customer will manage all the other costs, fuel or all other sorts of costs. Trust today is quite obvious. We have technical availability. Gaël showed you the results, more than 75% technical availability in 2017. And this is what counts for customers. The vessel is present whenever it is needed. Then safety. Safety in offshore is fundamental. Safety of people, safety of assets, all these things are quite fundamental. It's a prerequisite. And the result of this is increasing. The safety is increasing. So again, I would like to thank our teams for all the efforts they've made. Third element, representing the trust of our customers, it's a relationship with them. It's a constant, permanent relationship. It lasts long. We've been working with these customers for years, and it's based in Angola or Houston. Wherever it's Angola or Houston, we are present. Whenever there is a problem, we can solve the problem extremely quickly and at the right level. So second point, the trust of our customers, as I said. Third point, third asset, our brand, the Bourbon brand, on a specific market. As we said, the market is a bit complicated, to say the least, and this is an understatement. It has overcapacity, it's fragmented. There is no answer per market or per sector. Most of our competitors, 400 of them, are suffering. They're all suffering. The cash is not, they're not doing well, obviously. And some of them are doing better. Bourbon is among them for three reasons. First of all, they have the right vessels. They can meet customers' demands with all their vessels. Two examples, the age. More and more tenders today require young vessels, less than 15 years of age, sometimes 10 years of age. So age is a key asset, is a key element here. And some vessels cannot just be present on the market anymore because of their age. And then daily efficiency. For example, the Bourbon, we've invested in fuel, for example. Our vessels today are efficient. From a fuel viewpoint, they can operate at low cost. So that's a first prerequisite. You need the right vessels to meet the most difficult demands of customers. Second resilience factor, operations, continuity of operations and cost control. And again, here we've been working for years. Decrease of we invest less and less. And then you have access to the market. Access to the market is very important in many of our countries. And we are more resilient whenever the market is decreasing, for example. We are the only one left, the only one with a good relationship with customers. Then, fourth asset. Our model, our business model, it's very specific. We are international. As you can see here, our fleet is distributed in most offshore zones. In America, Africa, Middle East, or Asia. So we are present at international level and we can then diversify risks. We are no longer connected to one specific oil field or one specific customer. This is very important given the situation of the market. So we are fully international, but we are at the same time very local. And this is the result of our old and long-lasting strategy. We are focusing, we are developing partnerships with local partners, strong local partners who know their market, who are here to go on surviving. They're not here for one contract and that's it. And this is why when you look at the decrease in volumes or prices, Bourbon is doing better in most countries than other competitors. So to summarize the situation, marine and logistics, 4 assets. We're strong, we have good assets, human resources, geographical footprint, and customers. The trust of our customers, this is fundamental. We meet their demands in supply or towing, mooring. Our brand is recognized. It's famous. We are the strongest brand on the market, and we have this very specific international and local characteristic. Is it sufficient? It would be sufficient if the market was doing well, if the market generated value. We are Bourbon, and being Bourbon mean being pioneers. We have to move forward. We constantly innovate. We go and discover things. So in order to recreate value in that particular sector, we have to innovate. We get out of our comfort zone, do more than what exists today. Our challenge is to get out of the system in which everybody operates with one vessel, with an obligation of means and not an obligation of results. We have to think fleet, not vessel, digital, not paper, cooperation and not contractual relationship with customers. We have to work taking into account added value services, obligation of results, not only obligation of means. Smart shipping is the first step. We will be able to connect all our vessels, work as a fleet, have a better maintenance when we can plan operations in a much better way. It's a first step forward, but it is not sufficient. To do better, to do more, we have to get out of this supply logic when we have, everything is at our disposal and customers do what they want. An example, fleet management. Gaël gave you examples about the use of deck or fuel consumption. We've analyzed more than 1 million data points, and in our fleet, as in all our competitors' fleets, there are heterogeneity. Not all vessels are used at full capacity. Same for fuel consumption. Too many differences from one vessel to another. So today, Bourbon is ready to take more risks. In supply, fuel consumption. We do control the risks. We have data, we have competencies, we have assets in order to manage all those risks in a more efficient way. So today, the challenge is to do better in the way we manage our fleet. Second, logistics, supply chain doesn't stop at the vessel. It's an interface. The asset today for our customers is the vessel. The vessel is what leads the whole supply chain, gives it its rhythm, its pace. Now, in all our Bourbon vessels since 2014, a vessel, when it gets to the harbor, it spends 80% of its time waiting for something to happen. 60 to 80% of the time of a vessel is spent waiting. And in the meantime, customers is paying for it. Bourbon is paying for a crew. And orders, no order, go, no go, a warehouse which is not operating well, the crane is not operating, and whatever, and you name it. We can improve the efficiency of the logistics chain. Bourbon is a major stakeholder. We are on the critical element of the chain, and we can help improve it. Exploration. As I said, Bourbon is very local. We have a local footprint in many, many countries where we operate. We have a logistics, we have structures in those countries. Today we can provide services which are fully integrated. We offer an onshore basis, an onshore structure, a vessel, obviously. It's a fully integrated service. And Subsea will help us move on here. So to summarize, I would say that the fundamentals exist. We have a project, a plan, we have an ambition, we are moving forward. And the reason why we are going to succeed is that we have men and women who are eager to move forward. They're full of enthusiasm. They have the competencies, they have the marine know-how, service know-how. So I'll give the floor to Patrick now, who is going to tell you more about subsea services.
Messieurs,
Thank you, Victor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Patrick Belenfant speaking. I'm going to speak about Bourbon Subsea Services. We've been around for 14 years. In 2004, we began with one vessel, 2 million euros in sales. 14 years later, we're looking at 22 vessels and 220 million euros in sales, 25 ROVs. We also have an industrial approach that was launched in 2008 when we ordered 10 Bourbon Evolution 800s, which you saw on the previous slide. We also have 1,000 employees, men and women across the planet. 100 people or so in engineering offices to find the best solutions for our clients. First, the super majors. As you know, it's better to be closer to God than to his saints. So we looked at the super majors in 2004 to provide maintenance assistance in oil fields. Maintenance assistance is 25 years of life cycle for oil fields. Then we diversified towards independent operators, the large operators, the small operators, and we also worked with contractors by providing them with vessels, ROVs, and we give them availability. Operational excellence is indeed in our track record. Operational excellence means providing services in 3,000 meters of depths. And we're looking at major loads that have to be brought down in subsea objects, and it's technology. It's a niche segment, and as Gael said, it is a differentiating factor. It's not easy business. Also, 350 wellheads to avoid pollution in subsea areas. 50 to 100 tons are these wellheads that have to be placed in deep water in very delicate conditions. And our teams have to be technologically skilled. And this is indeed our business. We provide service to the producers for 25 years of life cycle of the oil field, 24/7. This availability goes beyond the 95% that was mentioned earlier. We need to have robots, arms, cameras. We are the eyes of our clients at the bottom of the sea to help them maintain their production. Well, our vessels are segmented as follows. 400, 40 tons, 100, 150, and above. I'll explain why we've chosen that segmentation. What do we do with our engineering teams? Well, we provide solutions based on our assets, vessels and ROVs, and we sustain oil and gas production. We provide inspection, visual inspection, like a checklist at the doctors. We also do maintenance, that is to say planned repair, as well as repair on a D-rate basis or on a flat fee. And we've been able to work with entrepreneurs and contractors. But we're not alone on the market, of course. We do have competitors. We have three types of competitors. Ship owners, global ship owners, whom you can essentially see in the North Sea. There are service companies that charter ships and local players as well, who use local flags. And Bourbon has local flags too, because last year we changed the flags of our ships. Now it bears an Indonesian flag. Now we have another one with Malaysia. And with our partners, we can sometimes change our flags or have two different flags. So geographically speaking, these players don't necessarily have the same footprint. There's the North Sea I mentioned. There's Brazil as well, and Australia too. They're a national flag player in the U.S., for instance, and there are local players, and you can see them in Asia and in the Middle East. And service companies whose footprint is far more global. What matters here is to have the right resources at the right price at the right place. Bourbon Subsea has positioned a fleet across the planet, and we have focused on our initial business, our initial comfort zone, Africa, with our partners. So we use our partners in Africa. We've grown in Asia and in the Middle East, and recently in India for the development of gas. We signed a 3-year contract with Reliance for deep water gas. Reliance used to take it to a ship with a 250-ton crane, but they didn't need that. We provide the right resources at the right price at the right place. We also have partnerships, and we work close to our clients. In other words, we provide them with solutions regarding production maintenance over a period of 25 years, which is life cycle of oil fields. As you've seen, oil deposits are depleting, and we are developing flexibles to inject chemicals into the well to stimulate production. We're like cardiologists in wells, and that is why Total gave us an award in 2017 after 30 years of services. After 30 years, our expertise has been recognized, and our teams are very proud of that. Today, Bourbon Subsea Services involves engineers who provide solutions, robots, and fleets. Tomorrow, Subsea Services at Bourbon will involve engineers, robots, vessels, but more than that, too. In our figures, you saw that in 2017 we had 220 million in sales. It's stable from 2016 because in 2016 we had 217 million in our top line and 220 in our top line in 2017. A stable top line doesn't mean that we're not transforming. We are. 10% of our sales in 2017 is ascribed to turnkey projects. In other words, an obligation of results, an additional risk on our part in 3 areas: pipelines, small cables, renewable energies, because we want to be involved in the energy transition worldwide, and a rather dramatic pumping of a wreck in a Singapore Straits with 1,000 ships cruising up every week. Anyway, we are indeed able to have turnkey projects on a reasonable scale, and we do measure the risk. So Bourbon Subsea Services moving forward will be a mix of chartering and turnkey project risks. Vessels, assets, ROVs, and human capital. Our vision is the vision I want to share with our teams. 1, we will take part in the energy transition with floating wind farms and hydraulic systems. Well stimulation is 2, and 3, turnkey projects within reasonable risk at the scale of Bourbon Subsea Services, and 4, maintain our assets in operation and continue with operational excellence. We have a team. This is one crew on the 802, and to bring the crew on to the facility, well, you need mobility. François is going to tell you about mobility. Over to you, François. François Lisley for Bourbon Mobility now. Good morning. Bourbon Mobility involves carrying people, carrying staff, crew, to where they must work. We have 2 main types of trips: long trips, distances up to 100, 150 miles. These are trips similar to air transportation. And we also rent out our ships. And personnel can be carried every day for our clients. Technicians, engineers are who have to go from one barge to another, from one ship to another. Here you have a photograph of one of our ships, which is taking passengers on board. This is a business that we've been involved in for roughly 30 years and where we are the undisputed leader. We are recognized on the market as being the leader in passenger transportation at sea, high-speed transportation for oil companies and contractors. We have a wide variety of clients, which illustrates our recognition. We carry over 3 million passengers every year. Sales of 216 million euros. That's the top line for 2017. In over 10 countries with 2,300 employees based in a number of countries. So we have a strong local presence. And we have a unique fleet of 269 high-speed crew boats, which we call surfers. And all that makes us the leader in our business. It's a unique fleet because the market has very high entry barriers in terms of safety, because you have to transfer personnel at sea. There's also a barrier in terms of technology, because the trip must be done quickly. So it takes technology, and there's another barrier, which is availability, because it's 24/7 and you need fleet size. We do have fleet size, and we do provide the right service to our clients. With the surfer concept, we have a standardized proposition. Therefore, maintenance costs are low, and maintenance is very swift, and vessel downtime is minimized. And here you have a change of engine here. If there's a problem with a ship, well, we can put in a new engine, fix it, and the ship can go back to sea quite quickly to continue to serve our clients. There's also a barrier in terms of technology, because the technology has to enable us to cruise at speeds of 40 knots with passengers. Few operators can make that claim, and we have a specific propulsion system that was selected a few years ago, and we are indeed ahead of our competitors in that regard. And we're also very innovative because we invented a unique boat landing concept, which is one of the main reasons for which our clients choose us. We have to be able to transfer our passengers safely and quickly at sea, and sometimes the sea can be rough. So the transfer boat landing system is done very efficiently, 50 passengers in under 10 minutes. That's what we can do. So the surfer concept is indeed unrivaled, and on the market we are definitely the leader. But of course we do have competitors. There is competition by planes and by boats. Over the long distances, our main competitor is the helicopter, of course. There was a transfer because the helicopters are more expensive, and there are some technical issues with helicopters. And some people still prefer helicopters nonetheless. So we're going to have to be able to meet the demands of customers who for some strange reason, still prefer helicopters. We have an American competitor who has recently acquired technology that makes it possible to transfer passengers at high speeds of 14 knots. It's Secor. Secor made a different technological choice from ours. Large catamarans that are far more expensive, and the fleet of Secor is 6 vessels, 3 of which are in Western Africa. Finally, on our in interfield transportation, there is a myriad of local operators whose fleet can go from 3 to 25 ships. These are players who, take opportunities. They go for contracts, but they don't have the infrastructure that we have with our surfer concept, with the maintenance facilities and local presence. So these operators come and go, but there are still quite a few we have to deal with. So we gained this leadership position through innovation, especially in the Gulf of Guinea in Western Africa. And now our business is highly concentrated in that area. It's due to the technical characteristics of our ships, and we may have to adapt that moving forward in order to consider other markets, which is what we are doing. As Gaël suggested, the crisis is an opportunity to reinvent our models, because being the leader is not enough. We have to be the leader in the future. It's especially true for mobility. We are the leaders because 30 years ago, we set the standards of this business by being innovative and visionary. And in order to remain in this leadership position, we have to change our business model by being innovative and visionary, and by providing new services to our clients and passengers. And we believe that this revolution is going to involve greater attention paid to new services for our passengers and clients, new services on board, new services outside our core business through diversification, and we need to invest in new tools. Today, when you take a plane or a train, you pick up your cell phone to check in. And you can even order your ticket on your cell phone. You can choose your seat or your gluten-free meal on board, right? In the future, these are services that passengers will take for granted, and they're going to expect that from us as well. So we have to do that too. We have to move out of our core business. That means being innovative in the whole chain of passenger transportation. Maritime passenger transfer terminals are not at the right level in terms of innovation. Of course, we have to find partners to structure this business and take foothold on these markets. We are looking at that right now. And if we tell our clients that we'll be able to pick them up at de Gaulle Airport and bring them to the oil rig, and if they can order their ticket online, I believe that that will meet their needs. Because if you take a passenger going from France to an oil rig, well, that passenger may have to deal with 10 or so operators, and it takes a while to prepare that trip, right? So the idea is to simplify passenger experience, enhance the travel experience by providing new tools and facilities. Picture speaks 1,000 words. This is a passenger checking in, with a pen and paper. But I am really convinced that Bourbon in motion, as far as mobility is concerned, means being visionary and innovative.
Merci François.
Thank you, Francois. Quite a few ambitions for mobility, therefore. And Francois is the fine illustration of the new Bourbon in Motion, which is accelerating. Francois joined us yesterday, and 24 hours later, he just walked up to this platform and spoke to you, ladies and gentlemen. So, the roadmap is crystal clear. We're going to create the two companies, Subsea Services and Mobility. Differentiation companies. We're going to support the transformation of marine logistics to make it a self-operating company in the second half of 2018 by investing in the smart shipping program, by reactivating the smart fleet, which is stacked because business is picking up, by doing away with the non-smart fleet, and as Victor explained, by growing in integrated services provided to our clients. In parallel, we're going to adapt the group's organization and its governance. In conclusion, well, waiting is not an option, because the future will not be the same as the past. We must change, we must reinvent ourselves, and that is what Bourbon in Motion is all about. Bourbon in Motion means better serving our clients through three companies that will be able to deploy their own strategy with their own staff and their own resources, gradually to change their business model towards more integrated services, not just by adding functions in a pragmatic way, step by step, by taking measured risks with using technology. Bourbon in Motion involves enhancing operational excellence while optimizing cost by using the smart shipping program, by capitalizing on the digital revolution, and by using our technological partnerships with Kongsberg or Veritas, for instance. Finally, Bourbon in Motion means taking up the challenge of the human revolution, probably the most daunting but the most exciting challenge, because the roles and responsibilities of our people, skill sets, and organization are changing. Machines will not replace human beings in every situation, of course. As you can see here on the left, when humans have to do something, well, they take the information themselves through ears and eyes, of course. Those human beings analyze and then make decisions, and then act. Little by little, in green here, machine or AI will take up some of these functions. Information analysis, maybe make a few decisions and act, but in parallel, the role and responsibility of human beings will also change towards more action, more management, more risk analysis, and more monitoring of operations. So it's a major change. It's the human revolution, and that is what the men and women at Bourbon are doing. Change has always been in the DNA of Bourbon, and once again, we are confident that we will be able to deliver. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to provide you with microphones, and we'd be very happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Bien. Oui, bonjour. Guillaume Delaby, Société Générale.
Guillaume Delaby from Soc Gen. Congratulations to Gaël, because this was a great presentation. And you're not complacent with yourself. You didn't do yourself any favors. I have financial questions for you. The capital gains from disposals of the boats you're going to dispose of, are we looking at 100 to 150 million euros? Is that reasonable? Also, could you tell us more about what you're going to have to pay out in the coming years to the partners in the former Asset Smart plan, so we can have some visibility regarding cash flow. And finally, an unpleasant question. At the end of 2019, you won't have much equity left. What will your plan be then? There you are. Well, it's good to have financial questions, but today is not the day for the presentation of results. So I suggest I answer those questions in mid-March when we do disclose our results in detail. I have 3 questions. With CMC Market Solutions. First, to go from a D rate to a rate per ton, for instance, for marine services, how much time will it take to meet your objectives? Also, 4 men less on board, 130 ships, we're looking at 520 seamen less. Does this mean that you are going to streamline through layoffs? And my third question, in all 3 divisions, could you tell us about strategic alliances? Are you considering anything specific? Well, how much time will it take? Well, it all depends on the business. If you take, for instance, Subsea has already done some turnkey projects, so it's already the case today. Regarding marine and logistics, it appears that since our fleet has been connected, we're picking up information that's more and more interesting to our clients. And our clients are pressing us and saying, why don't you offer more integrated services for marine and logistics too? And as a matter of fact, we have projects that we've been working on, and we do hope that we'll have references in 2018 that we'll happily report to you. Regarding mobility now, well, that is probably the business that will take the most time. But our aim is to act fast and run a few tests this year. Regarding the evolution of skills and whether we're looking at layoffs, no. Well, because part of the crews that will be brought back to land, but the smart fleet has an increasing utilization rate. And we consider that if you take the number of people who will be brought back to land and the number of ships that will be reactivated, we're going to strike some kind of a balance. So no. The short answer is no, we're not looking at any redundancies. On the contrary, as a matter of fact, with integrated services, we will have to hire additional skills. So rather than redundancies, we're probably going to recruit. Your final question was? Oh, alliances, strategic alliances. Well, we created all 3 entities with their own strategies. Well, the idea is to help them self-operate, and whatever their boards decide could consider strategic alliances. Yes, I will challenge the 3 CEOs. I want them to come up with ideas, sensible ideas, of course, in terms of access to market or in terms of new services. So you see, we're creating these self-operating companies to have their own, to enable them to have their own strategy and own strategic alliances. I found, well, your punt rather frustrating. Let me attempt another financial question. You'll get the same answer. With the new organization, could you tell us about the financial trends for 2018? 2017 was rough. Do you think that there will be some kind of recovery in 2018? Also, you're being cautious as you consider that prices will not rise before 2020 or 2021, given your stacked vessel approach. In 2019, do you think there will be further pressure exerted on prices? Another question. Could you tell us about your debt, which is rather substantial, and tell us what measures you're going to do to deleverage? And you say you have to cut costs by another 20 or 30% in order to be profitable. Could you tell us how you can achieve those 20 to 30% cost reductions? Well, regarding the financial numbers, again, I suggest you attend the meeting on the 15th of March. Regarding our forecasts, well, in 2018, there will still be shrinking oil investments, so 2018 will be a year of further headwind, although business is gradually picking up. But in terms of pricing, we don't see any rises before 2020 or 2021. Maybe from a regional standpoint, there may be some local changes. If you take the North Sea, last year there were 24 drilling facilities and in the peak in the summer, and as we speak there are already 36 drilling facilities due to start operating in the summer. That's a 30% jump, an increase. So on average, pressure on prices will remain strong, but regionally there may be some changes. Since, well, as Victor said, we do have an international footprint, so we will benefit from regional increases, of course. But since prices are not due to increase before 2020 or 2021, we can't just sit and wait for the paint to dry. So we're going to have to cut our costs. So from 15 or 16 people on board, we're going to have 9 or 10 only. And then in the smart fleet, we can connect to 30 to 40 ships per year. €500,000 invested in each ship. That's going to take 2018, 19, and 20. So the full impact of this cost reduction effort will kick in 2021. But gradually, we're going to change things. And when you change a ship, you have one crew member sent back to land, then 2, then 3, and so on. So it's gradual, it's step by step.
Yes, we have a question at the back of the room. Good morning, Tiffany Berthaud, financière de la Cité. I'll try and ask a question, but in a sort of different way. Your plan is quite ambitious. May I ask the question, how are you going to finance it? Well, ambitious, well, 75 million euros during over 3 years, so 25 million per year. We used to buy a vessel, 15 million every fortnight. So it's not such an ambitious plan from a financial viewpoint. It's a reasonable plan, I'd say. But again, as far as financial elements are concerned, I come from Brittany. I live in Marseille, but I come from Brittany, so I'm stubborn. I will give you the same answer. Okay, then, I would like to thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thanks for your presence this morning, and see you soon.